gardeners, Amy here with Garden Up. Today I want to show you how to plant a tree. So there's a lot of ways to plant a tree. A lot of them are right and a lot of them are wrong. So I want to first say what to look for in the nursery when you're picking one out, how to pick it up and carry it around and transport it, and then we'll get to how to actually put it in the ground. And we'll talk about a few different methods and pros and cons about each method. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So first off, when you're at the nursery, there's a few things you should look for. One, you should look for the root flare. So the root flare is the point where the trunk turns into roots. The trunk will flare out a little bit and then become roots. Roots are designed to push soil out of the way and absorb nutrients. Trunks are not designed to move soil out of the way. So if soil is actually up on the trunk, touching the trunk, it can cause a lot of problems over time, not just rot, but it can actually constrict the growth. And let's say this tree was planted at this depth. Up to this point, this part of the tree may never get any wider, but the tree above that point will. And I've seen this more than once, where the tree above the ground is getting wider and wider and wider as years go on, but underneath it stays this pencil-thin base. So you literally have this nice big fat caliper trunk on top of a pencil-thin base. It's gonna break eventually. It makes for a very weak tree and an unhealthy tree. It can kill the tree. So don't do that. Do not plant it too deep, and do not buy a plant that is in the pot too deep. Because if it's in the pot, you're going to think this is the level I need to plant it at when it's actually not. So look for that root flare in the nursery, okay? So that's thing number one. Ideally, you're going to want to find one that's not root bound, but good luck. A tree this size in a pot is going to be root bound, so I'll show you how to deal with that. You want to find one with a good healthy trunk, not too many nicks and things, but nicks do happen, so that's not a deal breaker or anything. You want to find one where, when the nursery did pruning, they made correct cuts. So these aren't perfect, but they're not bad, so I can live with that. And then the other thing that nurseries do that drives me a little crazy is they'll top their trees. They'll literally just nip it up, and then they'll take a lateral branch and train it to be the new primary branch. I know there's a reason for this, but it makes no sense to me. I look for trees that have good, strong central leaders, okay? Don't find one that's already split and has two tops. Look for a central leader. And then you want to look at the actual aesthetics of the tree, right? So it's nice shape, it's got branching in all directions, there's not too many broken branches or sprawly branches or anything like that. There might be a pruning cut that you'll need to fix, like this one. Okay. That's no big deal though. Here's another one. The nursery just cut it not at a node. Next, how to carry a tree. A lot of people grab the trunk and pick up. This is so bad for the tree. Don't do this. This is really heavy. If you grab it by the trunk, do that for stability only, okay? But you grab the pot, lift with your legs, if you're the only one carrying it, and pick it up, okay? Move slowly, or have a partner. All right, so the two of you stand on opposite ends, lift with your knees, and lift, and carry. Easy peasy, right? And if one of you wants to grab the trunk just to hold it stable, that's fine, but honestly it feels more stable doing it this way. When you're loading it into your vehicle, you'll want to load it and put it on its side, because while your car is driving around, it's probably gonna fall over anyway. So you might as well do this so that it's already in that position. Once you get your tree home, let's say you're not quite ready to plant it yet, you need a few days. Make sure to keep water on it, okay? These pots dry out so fast. Water it at least once a day. It's cooler now, every 2 or 3 days is probably fine if you give it a good deep water, but it needs to be watered. Don't forget that. Some trees, if they get a touch of drought, they're dead. So let's talk about the tools you'll need to plant a tree. Obviously, you'll need a shovel to dig the hole. If you have mulch, you'll need a rake to rake the mulch back. If you have rock mulch, you're going to need something bigger than an expandable rake, but a little bit of bark. You will probably need hand pruners in case you break a branch or in case something just needs to be tidied up. And then lastly, I like my Horihori, but you can use a claw or a few other things. A rip and chuck works too for dealing with the root ball, and I'll show you why when we get there. Other good tools to have, especially if you're planting where there used to be a tree, are some cutting tools like loppers or saws to deal with roots. Select your location. The tree is going to go right here. Pull back your mulch. Now when doing this part, remember that the hole you're going to dig needs to be 3 times the diameter of this. So that's a pretty wide hole. And you also need a place to put your soil. So you're going to rake your mulch back quite a bit. In order to plant a tree, you want a mound in the middle, just like with roses and other things. So I'm going to put a little bit of dirt back in. I'm going to measure. I use my shovel to measure the depth that I need. The root balls, the root flare is right about here. So that's just about right. Perfect. Okay. We put the mound so that the bottom of the root ball has good contact with the soil. Also, this mound will flatten and go away, so you can have your mound a little bit higher than it needs it because it'll compress down. Now we're going to take the tree out of the pot, which is its own adventure. These are usually super root bound, so you have to kind of beat them up. Roll it a little bit, just be careful not to hurt the top when you're rolling. Now, we're going to put it more into the hole so that I can hold up the... I'm going to hold from here, you pull the pot. Oh, there we go! Okay, so this is what I was talking about, it being root bound. This is pretty normal with a potted tree. Okay, and you see the spiraling roots. You've got to deal with that. You don't want to plant it this way or you're going to have spiraling roots forever and the tree will girdle and die. So this is where we take a Horihori or claw or whatever, and you're going to have to be a little mean and beat it up a bit. So we'll make a couple holes. Tell me if you can get in there with a tool in your hands and just tear them loose. This is more than a little massage like I usually give my plants. This one's going to be kind of brutal. If it's not this bad and you can get away with not breaking the roots, then that's best, obviously. But I've seen them so bad that the best thing you can do is literally take a saw or something and cut. Just slice right through it, because at least that gives the roots a chance to get out. I think we got it. All right, so let's set it into the hole and we'll check the depth. Okay. Not deep enough. We're not nearly deep enough, so let's set it back up. So now we're going to fill it back in. Now, the question to amend or not to amend the soil gets asked a lot when planting a tree. Should you amend or should you not? The answer is it depends. It depends on your situation, it depends on your soil, and it depends on what kind of environment you're planting the tree in. If you dig a nice little bowl-shaped hole and you fill it with all kinds of good nutrient-rich soil, why would the tree roots ever leave that hole? Okay? If you want a healthy tree, you want roots that spread out and grow. So you want it to search and seek out the nutrition that's in the soil around it. So if you have a hole, or if you have soil that is already super rich, this is a nice sandy loam. There's nothing wrong with it. It'll drain really quickly, but other than that, it's good healthy stuff. Why would I amend it? So if you have soil that's lacking nutrients, like straight up sand, then you might want to reconsider that. But at the same time, again, if you have a bowl full of nutrient-rich stuff, why is it going to leave? In that case, I would not amend the soil. I would actually plant it and then fertilize with top dress, with compost and maybe some fish fertilizer, some other kind of nutrition, by watering the soil around it. That way the roots are encouraged to go out. So I personally do not amend when I am planting trees. Now we don't want to bury it too deep around here. This has to stay open. Like I said in the beginning, the trunk is not designed to push soil away from it. A lot of people ask about staking, and so I wanted to make sure I covered it in this video. Most of the time, staking is unnecessary, and it can even be detrimental to the tree and the tree's long-term health. So when do we stake and why do we stake? Okay, the why is to support the tree if it needs extra support while it gets its roots established so that it can make its own support system. There are only two circumstances where it's really needed, and that's if you're planting a tree on a very steep slope, or if you're planting in a really windy area, like windy enough that it will knock the tree over before it gets those roots established. The problems with staking is that it can weaken the tree long term. If you put those ties on too tight, it can girdle the tree. It'll also stop the tree from bending, so the tree may not learn that it needs to actually send out anchor roots to make its own foundational structure. So if you have a tree and you stake it, only the part above where that tie is will be able to move with the wind, which can create a very weak point that can break in the future. So there's a lot of problems that can be caused by staking, even more when the stakes are left on for too long. So if you're going to stake, put one, maybe two, maybe three, in extreme circumstances, stakes around your tree. If it's in a windy area, put the stake in the direction that the wind is coming from, and you'll only need one, okay? Make sure to tie loosely so it doesn't girdle the tree. You don't want it to be tight, and then you must take that stake off within a year. There's no reason at all to leave stakes on for longer than a year. The trees will get established and they will be fine. Remove those stakes, or at least loosen them significantly, and just get them off of there. Stakes are temporary. You don't need to leave them on for very long. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to hit the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss a video. And if you have a question or an idea about a gardening topic that you'd like to see a video on, make sure to leave a comment below so I can maybe put that together for you. I want to thank my crew for helping me with this video, as well as my client for letting me use her yard. And I believe that is it. On that note, we'll see you in the garden.